feel terrible making people wait for the exciting content of our riveting panel.
Robert, we are now live on YouTube.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, what I'll do then is I'll just keep scouring for Ambassador Ozoliņš. When he does come on, I'll have him join us. And then I'll also work to see if I can make it happen. But for everyone else, hello, my name's Robert Baines. I am the President and CEO of the NATO Association of Canada. We are a charitable organization dedicated to informing Canadians about the value of security and the importance of NATO. This is something that most Canadians don't have to worry about on an everyday basis. Security is something that barely crosses their mind, which is great. That's a wonderful thing, but it's something that we've built towards. It's a state of being that most people, for most of human history, have never dreamed of, not having to worry about security. It's a wonderful thing, but it also comes with its own challenges and dangers. And the NATO Association is here to make sure that Canadians do think about security every once in a while, because if you don't, if you ignore it, if you let it pass you by, the chances are that you'll take it for granted and stop working at it. And the thing is that Canada has spent so long, decades, helping to build up organizations like NATO and the rest of the rules-based international order, which see things in a non-zero-sum way. I.e., that means that everybody contributes a little bit and gets a huge amount out of it. And security especially acts that way. We found this after the end of the Second World War. We realized that isolationism, division is what makes us weak. Unity is what makes us strong. Unity is the only way to maintain peace through strength. So that's really what we're trying to communicate, and that Canada is part of an amazing organization, and one which has great ties with our fellow NATO allies. 31 of them now, hopefully 32 in the near future, but we have 3 great NATO allies today here with us, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. We're going to have a great discussion about the state of the alliance, and especially the state of the eastern flank of NATO, where the enhanced forward presence exists for NATO. And I'm really just thrilled today to be able to have this discussion in this context. There's a lot to be worried about in the world today. There's a lot to be proud of at the same time, though, as far as NATO is concerned. We have a tremendous amount of opportunity before us. And I see that I think Ambassador Ozoliņš is sending a note, so I will try to add him as well. But for now, we might as well just get started. I'm happy to say that we've got 2 wonderful discussant partners here today for our 3 ambassadors. That's Ali Sayani. He's one of our program editors here at the NATO Association, along with Matthew D'Amico, who is also another program editor here at the NATO Association. The association prides itself on being absolutely injected with such energy from youth, from students, from those who are just launching in their career, because that is the future of Canada. And I'm proud to say that Ali and Matthew are 2 great examples of the future of Canada, and their engagement makes me proud to see what the future of Canada will be. So I'll hand it over to you, Ali and Matthew, and we'll get Ambassador Ozoliņš on here as soon as possible. Thanks so much, and you 2 take it away.
Thank you so much, Robert, for that very kind introduction. Before further ado, I think we'd love to introduce our distinguished guest. So today we are honored to be joined by His Excellency Margus Rava, who became the Ambassador of Estonia to Canada in 2022. Since graduating from Talinn University in 1989 with a degree in electrical engineering, and in 1992 from the Estonian School of Diplomacy, Ambassador Rava worked as a diplomat in the Estonian Embassies in Riga and London, later becoming Estonia's ambassador to France and permanent representative to UNESCO. In the last decade, he has also acted as ambassador to Greece, Cyprus, and Albania, as well as directing divisions for trade policy and business diplomacy development. Thank you for joining us today, Ambassador.
Pleasure is mine. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody.
Also, we are grateful to be joined today by His Excellency Darius Skusevičius, who became Ambassador of the Republic of Lithuania to Canada in 2019, and whose country will be hosting next week's summit in Vilnius. Prior to his appointment, He held various positions, such as the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Lithuania from 2015 to 2017, and Director of the National Agency for Youth and Students from 2006 to 2008. The ambassador holds a bachelor's degree in software systems from Vilnius University, a degree in business management and administration from the University of Management and Economics, and a master's degree from the Institute of International Relations and Political Science at Vilnius University. Thank you for being with us today.
Pleasure is mine. Hello, everybody.
I'm going to go ahead and begin with our questions. Thank you again, Robert, for the kind words, and thank you, ambassadors, for joining us on such an important time in the calendar year. The first question is for Ambassador Skusevičius. NATO's Enhanced Forward Presence, or EPF in short, in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland was established in 2016 in response to insecurity and instability along NATO's eastern borders. Canada is one of the leading states of the EFP, alongside Germany, the United States, and the UK. With first deployments in 2017 and later reinforced following Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. What role does the Enhanced Forward Presence currently play in strengthening the alliance and security on NATO's eastern borders?
So good day, everybody, one more time. And yes, EFP is a major development in past decade in terms of NATO. And the main thing is is deterrence, because the thinking philosophy behind is that having multinational troops on the soil actually present is a deterrence. So that's why nations in the alliance agreed to be part of this mechanism. And in Lithuania, it's led by Germany, but you rightly mentioned in Latvia, it's Canada in the lead. And what they do, they are posted on rotational basis. It's not only lead countries, but other allies are also, adding their forces to that. But they're training together. They're checking the interoperability capabilities. They're working together with the host nation very closely to be ready if anything happens to work together. But from what we see now, and why this is still ongoing debate, we see now that neighbors in our region are very aggressive and unpredictable, and therefore we think that this EFP forces should be even strengthened, and that was the agreement in Madrid last summit, that EFP battalions should be scaled up to brigade level. So what is happening now, it's exactly this. We are talking, each of the nation, host nation is talking with lead countries and other partners, what can be done to really reinforce and to increase presence of allied troops in our countries. But look, it works. It really works, and we heard a number of reassurances from other partners that every inch, every centimeter, no matter in which system you are, every centimeter will be protected. And by placing actual troops on the ground, it's working as a deterrence measure.
Enhanced Forward Presence is certainly a lesson in collaboration. Ambassador Rava, would you like to add on about the importance of the Enhanced Forward Presence?
I think the presence of the allied partners in each of our countries is a very good sort of practical example also of the fact that NATO is a defense alliance, that there are not only our immediate neighbors, but sometimes allies from across the ocean who are there to establish what we call deterrence, but then for the what the general public would understand as, outright help in case something would happen. So that is kind of, their presence has also, I don't know, practical and public sort of dimension to it as regards the general population in Estonia, Latvia, or Lithuania. That's perhaps the only aspect that I would like to add.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Rava. And I've noticed that we are now joined by our other ambassador, the Ambassador of Latvia, Kaspars Ozoliņš. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Ambassador Ozoliņš. We're very honored to be joined today by His Excellency Kaspars Ozoliņš, who became Latvia's ambassador to Canada in 2021. Ambassador Ozoliņš began his diplomatic career in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1994, working at the International Organizations Department and the Security Policy Division, as well as later heading the Russia Division and Security Policy Department. His Excellency has served at the Embassy of Latvia in Sweden and the USA and represented Latvia in the trilateral Latvia-Russia OSCE Commission. The ambassador holds a master's degree in history from the University of Latvia and has been previously posted as Ambassador of Latvia to the Czech Republic, Croatia, and Denmark, followed by his leadership of the Security Policy and International Organizations Directorate between 2019 and 2021. Thank you very much for joining us, Ambassador. Currently, we are talking about the enhanced forward presence, specifically with the Canadian role of the enhanced forward presence. How has that strengthened the deterrence capabilities of the NATO alliance? Ambassador, you are currently muted right now. Hold on a second, Ambassador. Could you hit the unmute button on the bottom left of the screen? The mute button's at the bottom left. It's beside the stop video. You are currently still muted. Okay, while we wait on Ambassador Ozoliņš, we're going to move forward ahead in the discussion. You can take it away here, Ali.
Right. So, like you mentioned, Canada has a significant presence, particularly in Latvia with the EFP. What concerns might there be in boosting the EFP as we go into Vilnius and with the other members who are also supporting the enhanced forward presence? What are the concerns on the ground between the Baltic states, and how might they be addressed?
I wouldn't say that it's concerns, but we should understand, and what we clearly see with the ongoing war in Ukraine is that we didn't invest for quite long time enough into our defenses, and we are in quite a difficult situation where if there would be enough of resources to do all of the things we are willing, I think that would be an easy answer. But now what we see with low defense spendings, defense industries are not developed enough. With even in Canada, you've heard how many vacant positions you have in Canadian armed forces. Same is happening in across the alliance. But I think the leaders in Madrid already agreed that there will be a scale up. So the question now is how and when to do that. And scaling up means not only that host main countries responsible, for example, Canada and Latvia. It doesn't mean that Canadians only have to commit to send troops. It means that all the infrastructure has to be ready to do that, because they are coming not for 1 week. We are planning it to be, permanent, of course, rotating every period of time, but you have to have infrastructure. So what is happening now, at least in Lithuania, we just heard from Germans that yes, they are committed to increase the troop count to 4,000 in coming years when Lithuania will be ready. Because this means 4,000 troops means that they are rotating, means that you have to have at least twice of this size. You have to have at least 8,000 troops ready for rotations. Lithuania on its side has to be ready with infrastructure. So we are doing everything we can on our side. Our main partner, Germans, are doing everything they can on their side. And I think in all the countries, similar conversations are happening, and we are moving forward with this. Because this is, at least for Lithuania, deterrence and defense is one of the main elements and priorities for this summit.
Okay, thank you. And Ambassador Rava, any thoughts on that?
Well, what I know that the decisions of the Madrid summit are indeed in the process of being put in place. That also in Estonia means a lot of challenges for the government, for instance, to enlarge the training area, which with a new amount of troops present in Estonia, in addition to housing, what Darius mentioned already, they need also places to train with heavy weaponry, and this is, hundreds and thousands of hectares of training grounds being enlarged, and there is a huge discussion with the communities involved, and not a very easy discussion at sometimes. So that is, in Estonia, this is again publicly a very visible thing that is very directly linked to the need to increase the allied presence in Estonia, and what Estonia on its turn has to do and will do. On the other side, I know there is an agreement between Estonia and the lead nation in Estonia, UK, respective authorities, how, when, and what is to be done in order that the Madrid's decisions will be put in place, will be implemented. That is an ongoing work, and I'm not in course of every detail of that process.
Ambassador Rava, with the admittance of Finland to NATO last year, Sweden's membership bid is on the table, and President Zelensky has renewed calls for Ukraine's membership. What does NATO's future in membership expansion look like, and what are the implications of this on Baltic security?
Well, the reasons, I guess, or the views how Estonia, or I guess also other Baltic states, view NATO's expansion stem from our own experience 20 years ago. And having settled or achieved that level of security, regardless of what is happening or what is being committed by Russia currently. This is a proof that NATO membership for us, a proof for us that it is the best security guarantee that there can be. And I think it is the Finnish people who changed their mind almost 180 degrees during some weeks only last spring. That also proves that NATO membership is the best security guarantee that there ever can be. And that same applies also to Ukraine. And we are fortunate to be in NATO since 20 years, almost 20 years by now. And Ukraine is unfortunate not to be yet. I think, as also the leaders have said at previous summits, place of Ukraine is in NATO, and it is up to each and every country to decide upon their security arrangements. It's not about third countries telling who will guarantee whose security and so on. So it's about the country themselves to decide. So these have been the crucial elements in the NATO enlargement process and will remain.
Thank you, Ambassador Rava. Ambassador Skusevičius, how does the admittance of these new members elevate the importance of this upcoming summit?
So, look, with Finland on board, we already are one step forward. Looking forward again to see Sweden in the club, and this definitely changes our security environment. Because yes, Finland and Sweden are long-standing partners of NATO. Lots of joint exercises, etc., etc. But being in the alliance means that they will be integral part of defense planning, and this is great news for whole our region, that those countries, their people decided that they want to join the alliance. Same goes with Ukraine, you know, and we were always strong supporters of open door policy. Promises to Ukraine and Georgia have been made years ago that at some point they will become NATO members. And what we see now with Ukraine, how they're fighting, how their military looks like, that you know, they are more than ready to be part of this defense alliance. The only question now is when we will have proper permissions for them to become fully fledged member. There are examples in the history when countries still they were accepted to NATO, even having some internal troubles, but of course the idea of upcoming summit is to move forward, to make tangible steps in Ukraine's partnership with NATO. And these developments are still negotiated in Brussels by our ambassadors. And of course, we'll know for sure what's the outcome of the summit only I think when it ends. Because when leaders meet, they will be making final decisions on many of the topics, including you know, what will be the formulation on EFP continuation, what will be the wording on Ukraine, etc., etc., etc. So, but yeah, that's our position.
Ambassador Ozoliņš, what perspective can you offer from Latvia about the implications of including additional members to NATO, and what are the implications of this on Baltic security?
Well, thank you once again for inviting me, and I'm sorry for sort of unsuccessful attempts to join in your conversation. So I started to listen to conversation apparently as a listener, and I appreciated that one, but apparently I have to speak as well, and as it was advertised. So thank you very much for your patience and on all of that. So well, I think it's been clear that NATO has been tremendously successful in defending its members and deterring of any, let's say, attack or threat, and this has been for more than 70 years. So next year is 75 years. So all of the countries who have joined NATO have experienced that security. We have seen that the countries that had a long-standing experience of non-alignment and neutrality, that even they decided that their policy that has been working during 2 world wars, I'm speaking about Sweden in particular here, not Finland, that this policy may not serve them in the current security situation in Europe when Russia is aggressively attacking its neighboring countries and basically has become indeed very, very unpredictable partner. So it was the actions in the aggression against Ukraine was very unpredictable. So the way, the brutality of the war that Russia is waging against Ukraine has been unpredictable. So, and right now the events that took place like in last couple of weeks in Russia, so you couldn't predict that one. And so the many things that we have experienced in the past is suggesting basically that that you should aspire for collective security defense, collective security within NATO, and that seems to be the best guarantee for the security of those countries. And for the rest of the countries, well, we have seen that Russia has attacked the non-members of NATO. That's 2008 Georgia, and then in successive attacks on Ukraine. So apparently, so the hard-learned lesson and truth of the fact is that you are safe. You are much safer, of course, if you are part of the NATO. And then within the NATO, as NATO was growing from the initial number of small, let's say in the teens, so the number of the countries has doubled in the last, let's say, 20 years, and still NATO has been able to work as a united security and defense organization. So apparently there are very, very strong arguments for enlargement, looking from perspective of the countries that are aspiring for the membership, and also looking from the perspective of NATO, because I mean, if we look at the strengths of the defense of this Finland, that is the newest member of NATO, is very, very significant, and NATO has gained in that way as well. And we see that basically right now the Ukraine is showing that it is very, very capable country in defense, let's say, matters, and being able sort of to defend itself. And I think that would be gain for the NATO as well. So that would be my probably initial comment on that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Ozoliņš, for your thoughts, and we're very glad you could join us. Just before I move on to the next question, this is a reminder for those on Zoom and on YouTube that you can submit your questions in the chat function, which we will be asking later. Moving on to the next question. As you alluded to right there, Ambassador Ozoliņš, and this is also for Ambassador Skusevičius, Latvia and Lithuania are both neighbors to Belarus. How does the recent conflict between the Russian state and the Wagner Group and continued insecurity regarding the influence of Wagner's leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, and where he is stationed, factor into your assessment of threat and in NATO's calculations? Do you see non-state threats arising out of the turmoil of the war in Ukraine? Maybe you can start, Ambassador Ozoliņš.
We have had let's say, long history in relationship with Belarus since regaining independence, and Belarus has always been trying, let's say, to sit on the fence or being, let's say, trying to find the best what they can in relations with Russia, but also at some points trying to move closer to European countries and way of life, European Union, and so on. So, what we have seen since 2014 until 2020, when the elections in Belarus took place and the violent oppression of the protest of that one. So Belarus was actually very careful in let's say assessing annexation of Crimea and attack on Donbas regions in Ukraine, and did not recognize those parts, but only after the let's say unsuccessful election, or let's say to the mind of president of Belarus, Lukashenko, he had to rely on the Russian support to quell the let's say displeasure of the Belarusians, who thought that he's not a winner of that election. So since then, of course, the tone has changed, and especially so after the 24th of February 2022. So since then, we have seen, there is no doubt for us that Belarus is part of the conflict, because it is aiding, it is helping, it is the aggressor state Russia to stage attacks from its territory. It has allowed its territory to be used for launches of the missiles and whatnot. So basically, right now we see that Belarus is clearly on the Russia side. We are following let's say daily rants of President Lukashenko on TV when he's in a relatively good health, because he's not on every day in a good health. So that's let's say paradigm that was until elections of August 2020 has changed, and this is also one of the reasons why we are calling on and supporting sanctions that have been applied towards both Belarus and Russia. And what is important to have them in lock and have them synchronized. Because we know that one of the gist of the 11th package of the sanctions of the European Union is trying to close the loopholes, and that was something that we were calling on the earlier rounds of sanctions against Belarus and Russia, that we have to synchronize those sanctions so that the Belarus could not be used as a loophole in supplying necessary, let's say, components and parts for the Russian military machine, or basically allowing Belarus to be a place where through which Russia can still earn the money, for feeding its military machine and aggressive war against Ukraine. So there is no doubt for that. The other thing we saw already before Russian aggression against Ukraine last year, the full-scale aggression against Ukraine, was the Belarusian hybrid attack on its neighbors, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, trying to lure irregular migrants from Middle East and push them towards the European border. So basically, Lukashenko started to act more aggressive and in a more, let's say, hybrid manner already before a full-scale Russian aggression against Ukraine. So from that perspective, of course, this is a new situation for us. We have to take it into account. We were following the developments in Belarus and its, let's say, military cooperation and relationship with Russia, but this is a new situation with the Belarus being, let's say, supporting Russia, and also after the statements of bringing tactical nuclear weapons to Belarus, and especially after the it was sort of, as it is reported, negotiated between Lukashenko and Prigozhin, that Prigozhin would have a safe haven in Belarus and his troops. So from that perspective, situation has changed, and we have to follow and act adequately to it.
Okay, thank you. And Ambassador Skusevičius, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I can fully subscribe what Kaspars was just telling. Just to add one maybe element is that we shouldn't be 100% believing in everything we see coming from side of Russia. And even this Prigozhin Wagner group, what was happening in recent weeks, we shouldn't be fooled, because we don't know what's really happening, and we will only see it in coming weeks and months. What is really the deal, and how it will work in their terms. But it might also be media operation against us, trying to fool us and show some there are like number of different kind of evaluations what is really happening there with different kind of scenarios, what's going to happen next. But definitely what is clear is that Belarus is fully involved into Russia's war against Ukraine, and Russia's aggressive behavior, with regard to NATO. Belarus is in this. And we saw this for a number of years already, because like Belarusian troops are part of, they're training together with Russian troops. They are conducting military exercises. In most of the cases, it's major military exercises around significant to NATO country events, somewhere on the borders of those events, trying to provoke again and again and again. So this is clear. We live in a difficult neighborhood, and that's one of the reasons why we are saying that having more allied troops on our soils, and maybe Kaspars will add with recent announcements of Canada, but I see that and this is not only troops, but also equipment, enablers, which are coming together with those troops. We need to be better prepared to fight on the ground, to fight in the sea. And what we see from Ukraine's lessons, Russians were in Ukraine now, that air domain is a very, very important component. So we have to continue talking how to protect better our skies as well.
Thank you, Ambassador. For Ambassador Rava, Estonia hosts the NATO Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence. How in particular has the COE furthered NATO's mission to collaborate and innovate?
Well, that Center of Excellence is one of many, and then there is one on strategic communication, I think, in Latvia. There is another one on energy-related issues in Lithuania. And the role of these centers of excellence is to look at legal, economic, or public relations aspects of the work that NATO member countries do in terms of military or defense. And now cyber is a domain where essentially, broadly speaking, the sort of rules in real life should also be applicable to the domain of cyber. But this is not as simple as that. So I would actually mention two concrete things that the center in Estonia has come up with that is helping not only NATO member states, but also partners from around the world. One is so-called Talinn manual on cyber defense-related international law. So that's a fairly thick book. I had a look on it on the web before the seminar, published by Cambridge Press, and the first edition was written back in 2014 or 15. Now volume 3 is being put together. And that describes the legal aspects of both defensive, offensive operations, aspects of attribution, meaning how can we legally distinguish between the actors who have committed cyber crimes and so on and so forth. So that is a work that is being done in Tallinn. The other thing is what they themselves call the world's biggest cyber defense exercise called Locked Shields. That is happening every spring in Tallinn. And 3 or 4 years ago, I had the chance, because of my work relations back then, to be visiting, not participating, but visiting the site during the PR day. And me as an electronics engineer, I was startled about the complexity and the sheer physical size of the exercise. It was a big hall, in one half of which they had built a small town with water purification pumps, sort of power plants, hospitals, what is there that nowadays all of which are managed or controlled electronically to a certain extent, and through all sorts of relays and small electronic widgets. These small things on that display could be manipulated from the distance then. And there you had blue teams, which were actually then the competing teams, and then the red teams who actually tried to disrupt the life of that city. So that is the essence of the exercise. And it is really real life replicated in smaller dimensions, but replicated physically. And this is an exercise that has been going on for many years now. And that also is having participants not only from NATO member countries, but all over the world. This year's winners, though, they did come from NATO. No, they didn't. Sweden was among the winning teams. Sweden and Iceland, the joint team, won this year's exercise. I think Poland was third, and Estonia and US got the second place. So that is these are two examples that I think are worthwhile mentioning about the practical outcome of the Cyber Defense Cooperation Center of Excellence in Tallinn.
Thank you, Ambassador Rava. Thank you for that Estonian perspective. And continuing the spirit of innovation, NATO's Diana, so the Defense Innovation Accelerator for the North Atlantic Initiative, has just launched. Could you potentially, Ambassador Ozoliņš, maybe discuss why innovation is such a key matter for NATO and how Latvia is working towards supporting the development of emerging and disruptive technologies?
Well, indeed. Well, this is new area. I think it was agreed by by all of the NATO countries a couple of summits ago that the abbreviation was EDT. It's emerging disruptive technologies, indeed. And so there is recognition that you can do so much with the new technology without actually using weaponry and typical military weaponry. And we saw it through the use of social media, you know, the interference in the elections, in referenda, especially in 2016 in the US elections and the UK referendum on the Brexit. So you can tilt results and interfere into democratic processes. The things that was just mentioned by my colleague, Estonian ambassador. So this is how you use the cyberspace actually for malicious activity. And this is again something that we need to learn from each other. We need to upgrade the standards. So what Estonians have done with the manual have basically addressed the issue. If we need to draft a new international law for cyber defense, and their response, their answer was basically no. So the international law is can sufficiently be used to address the cyber attacks issues. So basically, there is no vacuum in that sense. And then there are other issues that are coming into the focus, where technology is becoming more potent, let's say, to bring a havoc into our daily life. So let's see about the space technologies. You know, how the communication satellites or other satellites can be. Their function can be interrupted in the space, and how we can counter those actions. Or basically, if we know that in China there is a order to the scientific community to think, when they are thinking about the new technology, so that they should think about the dual use of the military use as well right away from the very start, from the very inception of any new idea. So this basically raises let's say the red flag, and we need to think in the similar terms. So and I guess with technology, I mean, with new technologies coming in, and especially the let's think of quantum computers, let's say, coming in, and artificial intelligence coming in. So there will be multiple uses and multiple ways actually how to use those technologies to gain advantage against the other countries. So those issues need to be addressed. So when I think we've made a right decision at NATO to sort of collectively address that issue and look at the all type of the different technologies. So I think every country was able to express its let's say wishes and willingness, which way they would want to work on the innovation side and on technology side, and which hubs and clusters do they want to host on their soil. And of course, with regard, you mentioned Diana, so we will have only 2 of those centers, one in Europe and one in Canada, in Halifax, as far as I understand. And then there will be other test beds and for smaller, let's say, for individual, let's say, technological issues. So in that sense, I think in Latvia's example is that we are serving as a 5G test bed for military use and military applications. So we can have a demonstration on that site in Latvia, and the other countries of the NATO could use those things. So basically, we are seeing that the adversarial action is moving from the ground to different areas as well, and we need to address those issues. Of course, and I paused a little bit because we didn't expect that the full-scale military attack, the ground attack, and air attacks and everything will come back. Let's say the tactics of the Second World War, but now there we go. So we have to look at all directions. So the threats may come from all directions, and including from the use of technology into security realm as well.
Yeah, thank you, Ambassador Ozoliņš, and thank you all ambassadors for your thoughts on innovation and specifically look at the European arena. Here's a question for Ambassador Skusevičius. In March, Gabrielis Landsbergis, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Lithuania, spoke to the Center for Strategic International Studies about the threat of Chinese economic coercion and mentioned that China would be on the table at Vilnius. What progress might leaders hope to achieve on NATO-China relations?
It's a very, very good question. And yes, even though we are most of the time mostly focused on our region and our own security, but we also see, and it's in the radars of NATO for quite some time, is not only Russia but also China, and challenges this country is posing to global society, and therefore we will have one of the sessions at the summit will be with Indo-Pacific partners, with Japan, Australia, South Korea, and New Zealand. So this is important, and I think continuation to talk with those partners and then to see what can be done together. Because Canada, for example, of its announcement of Indo-Pacific strategy, has a military component in it as well. Other partners are doing some, security guarantees in that region as well. So having this kind of debate, how we can help our like-minded partners in the Indo-Pacific is a really important one. And what my minister was saying, we had big challenges with China in past several years, and so definitely we are interested in joint conversation about how we address such kind of challenges.
And Ambassador Rava, Ambassador Ozoliņš, would you have anything to add on Indo-Pacific cooperation as being key to future deterrence capabilities of NATO?
Well, I may, Rob. Okay, very one sentence probably. So I think we are not gone that far. So one thing, of course, we are looking at as I said at the very beginning. So we are looking at the best possible ways how we secure our let's say peace, way of life, how we deter of any aggression. And things like that. So basically, we have to be capable to deter against everything. So that harms our, let's say, societies and our security of our countries and societies, indeed. So, and as we spoke in the previous question, so you have so many vectors, threat vectors, so many ways how you can be harmed. So the first thing basically is have a conversation among all of the NATO countries first, what we can learn, what we can know about the threats coming from different parts of the world, the threats that might be global, what we can learn also from other countries in those parts of the world. So the most like-minded countries of ours, of course, are the countries in the Indo-Pacific region. And knowing that everything. I mean, if the P5 countries are engaged, so that the issues are strategic, those are big global issues, and we need to learn more first, and see how we are. What is the issue that's coming at our plate, and how we are learning about it, how we are understanding it, so that we can be more or less on the same page. You know that, let's say, on the example of Ukraine, or let's say starting from Georgia, in 2008 there was war against the neighboring country of Russia, and on the other end, on our end, there was, let's say, different views of what we are doing about it. So we, the Baltic states, said, well, we need to sanction Russia because it may not stop there. So that was not the prevailing view. After 22, so that's 14 years later, all of us are on the same page in reading security situation and what we need to do as well. So this is level of unity we have never had at NATO. So God forbid similar things would happen in other parts of the world that would also equally influence us. So we may not have a 14 years time, let's say, to learn and come on the same page, you know, and reading the situation, the security situation and the potential steps from the NATO side. So we need to come together early on and learn more so that we make right preparation, invest in the right ways, invest in the right technologies, invest in the unity, so that we can make at the end the right decisions, and also unanimous decisions in unity among all of the NATO countries. So I think that's the core. It's not that we are at the outset right now are looking at some kind of specific capacities. Although the consultation itself, it is, I guess, it is a deterrent, has a deterrent effect as well. So we are signaling that we are looking around the world, looking at different parts where some, let's say, challenges might come at us, and we want to be, let's say, sharp on those issues early on.
And I would like to highlight an element that is within the strategic concept of NATO adopted at the last summit in Madrid. And there the partnership between China and Russia is something that the NATO member countries are having a close eye on. And these two countries have had, for instance, joint naval exercises not only in Pacific but also on the Baltic Sea, just beside Riga or Tallinn. So these two countries do cooperate in some spaces, and Russia being a violator of all possible principles, and China has not been very clear-cut in condemning all this, so this is a matter of concern. And from the Estonian point of view, I think it was our minister during the annual foreign policy presentation in the parliament in February. He said that Estonia also has backed out, like Latvia and Lithuania, from the 16+1 framework of cooperation between China and a number of Central and East European countries. And one of the reasons was exactly the Chinese attitudes and reactions to the Russian aggression in Ukraine.
Thank you, Ambassador Rava, and thank you to all of the ambassadors who participated today, and thank you for your thoughts. Looking forward to Vilnius, July 11th to July 12th, 2023. We've discussed Canada's role in bolstering security through an enhanced forward presence, how the Baltic states are responding to events in Belarus and Russia in the last few weeks, the increased innovation as being key for deterrent capabilities, and the key role for the Indo-Pacific. I'm now going to pass it along to NATO Association of Canada President Robert Baines to pull us in.
Thanks so much, Matthew D'Amico. Great job, Ali Sayani. Thank you so much for taking us through this. Ambassador Rava, Ambassador Ozoliņš, Ambassador Skusevičius, always a pleasure. I think that these kinds of discussions are so important to galvanize the Canadian public, to make sure that they understand the complex issues that we have to deal with. And it always amazes me how much agreement NATO has been able to gather over the past year and 4 or 5 months since the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. It gives me heart. It gives me such a forward-looking optimism to see what we've accomplished. And I look forward to seeing what happens next week. We haven't touched Canadian defense spending, obviously. That's not your remit, but I'll be watching that closely. But I just hope that most Canadians who are watching now realize that this is not something we can skimp on. These are our friends, our great allies. And Ambassador Rava, I see you have one last point to you.
Yes, I cannot avoid telling a story how allies spending militarily would create economic security. There is a Canadian company called Neo Performance Materials based in Toronto, and they are into rare earth minerals mining, processing, and then making magnets out of them. And they own a factory in Estonia, Silmet, since about 7 or 8 years ago, which produces the rare earth metal or oxides, neodymium, praseodymium. And currently these metals are shipped to Asia to make magnets that go into cars and wind turbines. In 2021, they started thinking about building a factory in Estonia next to the current one to make magnets. Then came February 22, and they got afraid. It's a publicly listed company, so all the investors started asking questions, what if Russia bombs the factory? And it took the company about 6 months to get convinced that NATO security is there. And by November, they had made their investment decision to the tune of 100 million Canadian dollars. And the groundbreaking of that factory happened last week. So without the Canadian contingent in Latvia, or the German in Lithuania, or Brits in Estonia, and all the other partners who are also doing the air policing, and Finland joining, all that has contributed also to the fact that investments move around. People are not afraid to put their money right next to the Russian border because it is within NATO. So that's how, to put it bluntly, money spent on defense will create income for the companies and eventually for the people as well. Thank you. That's a story I had to tell. I didn't find the possibility during the
to weave it in,
session.
yes. But it's always wise to remind ourselves of that NATO is not only within our values, but in our interest as well. And that's unequivocal. So thank you so much for bringing that out. And thank you to all for participating. Again, the NATO Association continues to educate Canadians about the value of security and the importance of NATO. Please do follow us on social media, obviously on YouTube, etc. We do have another event next week, which will be on the second day of the NATO Summit. That will be on July 12th at 9 a.m. Eastern. We'll be going through some of the results of the NATO Summit. What are some of the decisions, and hopefully what are the Canadian announcements about further defense spending. So thanks so much, all of you excellencies, for joining, and Matthew and Ali, great job. We hope to see you again soon. Thanks so much. And I got to turn this off.